Good afternoon, everyone. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so for people to get logged in from the lobby, and then we'll get going. Welcome. All right, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome. Thank you for participating in today's Home Performance Counts virtual Green Home Tour. My name is Michelle Diller, and I'll be your NAHB host today. Today, the tour series takes us to Denver, Colorado to see the Vitality Collection in Central Park Urban Downs by Thrive Home Builders. By virtue of an unprecedented 6 in a row grand awards for housing innovations from the United States Department of Energy, Thrive is among the nation's foremost builders of high-performance homes. Every Thrive home is built Zero Energy Ready, LEED certified, and Thrive is Denver's largest builder of EPA Indoor Air Plus qualified homes. Professional Builder Magazine named Thrive Home Builders their 2017 Builder of the Year as well. The tour today is brought to you by Home Performance Counts. Home Performance Counts is a joint initiative of the National Association of Home Builders and National Association of Realtors. You can learn more at www.homeperformancecounts.info. Please note that the session is being recorded and it will be uploaded for on-demand viewing on NAHB.org in the next few days. Please also note this webinar is copyrighted by the National Association of Home Builders and is intended to provide complete and accurate information on the subject matter covered as of the time of publication. I'll give you a minute to review the copyright and disclaimer statement. And then we'll move on to the learning outcomes. Today's learning outcomes are explore how the green building strategies and features of a home can impact its comfort, health, efficiency, and durability for the families that live in them. Discuss how to communicate green and high performance features to clients in a relatable way that increases customer interest and understanding, and recognize the advantages of a strong builder-realtor relationship in realizing the value of green in your next sale. Today's tour is just over 20 minutes and will be led by Dick Corti, Vice President of National Builder Sales for Sunnova Energy, who provides the solar for the Vitality Collection, and Gene Myers, the owner and CEO of Thrive Home Builders. Dirk has been involved in the home building and solar industries since the 90s. Gene's career in urban development spans over 30 years, from a civil engineer in the U.S. Peace Corps in the early 1970s to starting his own home building company in the early 1990s. They will also be taking questions live after the tour, so be sure to drop your questions at any time during today's presentation using the Q&A feature next to the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom webinar window. Both the questions addressed during the Q&A and anything we don't get to will be summarized in a PDF and available in the replay library with today's content. Now it's time for the tour with Dirk and Gene. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to today's High Performance Counts virtual tour. Today's tour is brought to you by the National Association of Home Builders and the National Association of Realtors. I'm Dirk Corti, Vice President of National Builder Sales for Sunnova Energy, and I'm honored to be here today and serve as your tour guide. We are on location in beautiful Denver, Colorado, within the Central Park community. Central Park is one of the premier infill master plan communities and has completely revitalized what was the Stapleton International Airport. This community is built on health and energy performance standards. There are many builders in Central Park, but today we're very honored to be spotlighting Thrive Home Builders. And we're going to have an opportunity to visit with Thrive CEO, Mr. Gene Myers. Let's head on inside and visit with Gene. Gene,
Dirk,
pleasure to see you.
So good to see you again.
Thank you, my friend.
Welcome to Vitality.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you today. And thank you so much for opening your beautiful model home to us today.
This was kind of a unique design challenge because we were in the middle of design when the pandemic hit. So we quickly added an Amazon drop station out on the porch, and we converted the basement to sort of a learn from home space. We have a formal study for work from home. But probably the most interesting thing for us, we have made a commitment to indoor air quality, which we sell as health, several years ago. And to be really honest with you, it's a little hard to connect the dots for our customers from, well, what does home have to do with health? And we just had drummed into our psyches for months that, well, home is actually the safest place you can be through the lockdown. And so it really gave us an opportunity to showcase our indoor air quality. And so we built to a lot of different standards, one of which is EPA's Indoor Air Plus program. And that's about keeping bad stuff out of the house when you build the house, but then it's about proper ventilation and filtration. And this was the first house we've ever built that actually has whole house HEPA filtration.
Yeah, I remember when you launched the home health program in your homes, and I even thought, well, that's interesting. I haven't really heard that. And obviously, other home builders were going that direction because it's all about health. It's all about people feeling comfortable in their home.
The lockdown happened, and we have a pretty outdoor lifestyle in Colorado. Well, at least we can go outside. And then the smoke came from the forest fires, and we've had a lot of it this summer too. And it's like it's actually unhealthy on some days in Denver. Sadly, I think within the last month we've had the worst air quality on the planet. And so where do you go? It's kind of like home is your last stand. And what if your home hasn't been designed to filter all of that out and to really give you this safe space from a health standpoint? And, us, you've known me for a long time, and we've been really focused on energy efficiency. Our customers do not have to be convinced on the sales floor that they should care about health. So we're big believers in third-party certifications. And all of our homes meet the requirements of the Department of Energy's program. It's called the Zero Energy Ready Home Program. That incorporates Energy Star for energy, EPA Indoor Air Plus for indoor air quality or health. Over and above that, we've achieved in our Vitality Series the Platinum certification. And so we think it's a way to provide authenticity and credibility for our customers. We're the mechanical room of Vitality Home, and this is where the magic happens from the standpoint of indoor air quality. And this is where our whole house HEPA filtration is. This is where our activated carbon filter media lives to help us on high ozone days. And then we have a thing here in Colorado where the Rocky Mountains are obvious when you're above the surface, but below us, that Rocky Mountains continue. That creates one of the hottest radon zones in the country. I'll be honest with you, it's pretty simple to look at. It's really just a little, they call it a piezometer, but it's measuring the air pressure underneath the slab. And when these are even, it means it's not working anymore.
You create a solar library for our builder partners that depicts the solar system that's going to be installed on that various model type and elevation. We use a black on black panel that's very aesthetically pleasing, and we use a mounting system that allows for a very sleek, low profile design. The benefit of a microinverter technology system is that if a microinverter fails,
it's only taking down one of the modules. Whereas if a central inverter fails, it takes out the whole system. The combiner box is a PV combiner box. It's bringing all of the microinverters to a central connection point. This combiner box is typically mounted adjacent to the electrical panel on the exterior of the home. The system can be completely monitored from a handheld device. Battery backup is becoming very popular. If a homeowner is interested in adding battery storage, we have several different methods available to them.
Great to be here. This vitality model is amazing. I mean, I'm just totally impressed. It's beautiful. And I know there's a lot of things behind the wall that we're going to touch on today also. But, we talked earlier about the healthy home. What really inspired you to bring that to the forefront?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I kind of was sitting around in probably 2016 or 17 and watching energy code advancement happen. And we had this huge competitive advantage with energy efficiency. And I thought, this is going to shrink because as code gets tougher, we have less. I mean, zero is about as far as you want to go. So as code gets better, our competitive advantage, I thought, was going to erode over time. And so I thought, well, what do we pivot to? And that's when we rebranded to Thrive Home Builders. Because the whole notion was, let's call attention to the fact that we were interested in seeing our customers thrive in our homes. I think for pretty much any high performance builder, it starts because you think it's the right thing to do. But if you can't figure out a way to come up with a viable business model, it doesn't get to happen and it can't scale. Sure. And so, to me, it's all one thing. It may sound like, well, that was just a mercenary business decision, but it's everything. It was the right thing to do. It needed to be done in the industry. It felt safe to do it. We had a good pathway to do it, and it was a matter of just making the commitment and walking the talk. Here's what I think. I think it's obvious that there's a problem, and I think builders can be a part of the solution. And so what we're doing, this home is a zero emission home. Zero carbon emission to operate. It produces its own electricity with your solar panels, and there's not a gas line in this house. There is no fossil fuel. When a family moves in here, they're going to have a very light carbon footprint on the operation of this home. Denver, which is where we're filming this, Denver has a goal of all net zero houses by 2024 and an 80% reduction of carbon footprint by 2030. I think the time has arrived where the industry really needs to step up and say, this is what this industry can do. And you know what? Buildings are like 38% of the total carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
In America, we're a very big piece of the problem, and we could be a very big piece of the solution.
Years ago, when you first initiated the Healthy Home and the environmental energy features, did you feel like it was a risky move at the time? Because you were certainly well ahead of the curve.
You know what, Dirk, I tell this to my fellow small private builders, is that I think the riskiest thing that you can do is to be just like everybody else. Because we live in this cyclical industry where it's up and it stays on. And when it's down, those big public companies can make a boardroom decision in Dallas or wherever, and your competition next door just whacked $20,000 off of the sales price. And how do you race it? You can't win that race as a small private builder. At least that's what I. And so I think it's a little bit crazy to just say I'm going to outdo those big public companies that do a great job of what they do. They're so efficient. They have such scale. I can't win that. I'd rather pick my own battles and say, well, we're this. And for the buyer that wants it, we're the only choice. And, you said wildly successful. I'd love to take that. And I wouldn't necessarily categorize this as wildly successful. We certainly had years when it was a struggle.
Sure.
But we're still here. And we've lived through the Great Recession. And we've lived through so much upheaval in the industry over the, I think next year will be 30 years that I've been a builder in Denver.
Gene, we've certainly seen just a significant enhancement to building sciences. I mean, it's a very prominent thing with builders. You mentioned commercial construction as well. How do you manage your trades and bring them up to speed? Or are you taking input from them? And what kind of guidance are you providing so that they're meeting the standards that Thrive has set down for their home construction?
Well, Dirk, it was way harder in the beginning than it is now because you're asking people to do something and they say, well, we've never done it that way before. We don't have to do it that way. And I think that inertia of the status quo is what maybe holds our industry back to a large degree. And yet these are the people that build our houses. And so, I feel like it's kind of a process where you gotta win the hearts and minds of your own people. And then you gotta win the hearts and minds of your trades. And then you can start to work on the hearts and minds of your customers. And so it's very much a collaboration of the manufacturer, the subcontractor, and of course it all starts with getting it on the plans right. So you got to work with your architects, and in that case, most architects are thrilled to work with us because we can teach them. We've kind of standardized our own detail sheets, and I think some architects just want to get a shot at our detail sheets to see how do you do this at a production scale at a minimal price premium.
That's great. We talked about code changes and what's coming up, and let's touch a little more on the solar. I know you're striving for that zero net energy home. We're talking about reduction in carbon footprint, all electric homes. How important is solar to the equation and getting you to that point?
Well, it's really interesting. We started doing solar in 2009 on all of our single-family houses back then. And why then? Well, there was a thing called the Great Recession.
Oh, yes.
And we're in a model area lined up with builders, and it's a race. What discount will you give me? And there were builders discounting houses $50,000 to move standing inventory. And we just couldn't do that. I mean, we're a small private builder. We couldn't play that game. So the thought process was, what if we give them something that they can't get anywhere else? And so we put solar on our houses then and gave it away. But we knew that if the customer cared about it, they could not go down the street and get it from anybody else. But somehow it all leads to here. And I used to be really concerned about which panels and whether they had a black frame or a shiny frame, and what we learned over the years from an aesthetic standpoint. Solar on a roof is a badge of honor for our customers.
I'd love to hear that.
And they're not nearly as concerned about aesthetics as I was back at the very beginning. And so it became about how do we deliver it in a financing package that they can afford. And so and you've been in that industry for so long, and you've seen the rebates were here, and then they did this, and the rec payments, and slowly we've kind of weaned off of most of that subsidy for solar as the price of solar has come down. And I hear people say, well, I don't really believe we should be picking winners and subsidizing industries. And here's the truth: it worked for solar.
Sure.
It started to allow enough scale to drive the cost down so that now it's a viable option for everyone.
The financing end of it, the technology end of it, I think
The efficiency end of
the
it.
aesthetics of that badge of honor that you talked about, we're very focused on that. So let me take you down this path. Storage is the next big thing, and we're certainly promoting battery storage. I know you folks have embraced that. I believe you're offering it to your buyers as an option. Is that correct?
Well, so think about this with me. We get a customer to buy an all electric car. And what happens when the power goes out?
They lose everything.
And so, there's energy efficiency, there's health, and there's resilience. And the resiliency, that recovery from a natural disaster or weather event or whatever is what that resiliency is about. And how do they get through there if they can't go turn on the gas fireplace or whatever? And, to me, the key for our customers to make sure they're okay when those things happen. For us, it's a blizzard.
Sure.
A blizzard will come, and I don't want them to freeze to death
Right.
because they run an all-electric car.
Right.
And so having that ability to generate power during daylight, charge up a battery that can carry you through the night, is a huge part, not just about, oh, isn't that cool? It's a really big part of the resiliency story. But it has to come with this next generation of homes.
Gene, I could sit here and talk to you all day, and I know you don't have time for that, but thank you so much for being with us today. I thank you. I think the Thrive team, and again, congratulations on your success, and certainly we look forward to a very bright future.
Well, thanks, Dirk. It's been really great to catch up with you, and again, we really love working with Sonova and all the help you bring us. I mean, you guys see our plans before almost anyone because we can't finish the roof design unless we know how much solar goes on it. And so you're such an important partner all the way from product development to being there with our customers, making sure they know how to get their national grid, getting them connected to the power company and all of that. So such a valuable relationship, which what we do doesn't happen with those kind of trade partners that really are partnering to make sure we're delivering the whole package for our customers. And so very grateful back at you, and I think it's great that you're sponsoring this series for the industry and really doing your part to move the industry forward. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome, and thank you for the partnership. We certainly value it. And I'd like to say thanks again to the National Association of Home Builders and the National Association of Realtors for allowing us to shoot this segment today. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching the video with us. We're going to get our participants up on the screen for some Q&A. Reminder, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please put some questions in there if you've got any for Gene and Dirk. Thank you, Gene and Dirk, for that great tour of Vitality and the robust conversation about the high performance building industry, about what's going on with solar and what your insights are for the future of it, and just the whole direction that you think the market is going.
You're most welcome, Michelle. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. So put your questions in the chat box. I will keep an eye on that. And we've got a couple offline questions to go ahead and get started with that might also pick your interest. First of all, Gene, I wanted to talk to you. This site is on the former Stapleton International Airport. And if maybe you could speak a little bit to what Central Park is for people who aren't familiar with it and how it came about.
Well, at one time, Michelle, I think it was the largest infill project in the country. And I think there are almost 10,000 homes built out there, and we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. We had our very last builder marketing meeting 2 weeks ago. And so it's a huge project we've been involved with for 21 years. And I'm sure there are builders in the audience who would love to think I have a home and a lot supplied for the next 21 years. But it's really started off with a very aggressive program for green and sustainable goals, education goals, affordable housing goals. And hats off to Forest City and now Brookfield, who purchased Forest City. I think they've done a great job of really bringing all of those goals to reality.
Excellent. So has Thrive been building in there over the past 21 years?
I didn't have gray hair when I started. Yes, we've been there since the very first filing. And you know, I guess I'm still really scarred from the recession, Dirk, because I think I brought it up 4 times in this thing, but we wouldn't have made it through it without Stapleton. And there was one place where we could build homes at a profit even when times were tough. So it holds a near and dear spot in my heart.
Excellent. So that's really cool. So 10,000 homes over the past 20 years.
I think there's probably another, maybe not quite 1,000 to go. So that's a big project, especially for infill.
Yeah, that is a huge project, definitely. And now I'm sure it's a hot remodeling market too.
You know, it's really fascinating. We, for this Vitality series that was on the video, we've had a 26% repeat customer rate.
Wow.
So people from within the Central Park development moving out of a Thrive home into a new Thrive home. It's really a rare opportunity for a builder to be around in that close proximity in the same neighborhood 2 decades later. But you think about a 20-year-old home, the people who bought our first homes, they're ready for an upgrade or a remodel or something because we've been there a while.
Right. And that's a really rare opportunity for, say, a family to be able to stay in the same school district, which is really critical. A lot of times you want a new home, but you don't want to change schools. So, and if they love the neighborhood.
And Michelle, some of the people on our backlog are will be in their third Thrive home. And, you know, I have to be honest, I think we're a niche builder. I think this high performance home buyer is a niche buyer, but they're really loyal and they do their homework. And I've spent my whole career thinking, yeah, well, you really don't get repeat customers because it's such a big purchase, but that just hasn't proven to be the case for us. We have a lot of repeat customers. I bet every builder on this panel wishes for that.
I am sure you are right. Speaking of high performance, you are one of the early adopters of Indoor Air Plus for EPA. And I was hoping you would be able to share with our attendees, maybe who are dabbling in it or are thinking about doing it, anything that you have to share with them about where to start, lessons learned, what you think.
Well, as you can probably tell from the video, we're big proponents of these third-party certification programs. And EPA Indoor Air Plus is, for our purposes, we think it's the definitive program to plug into in order to deliver health to your customers. And, you know, there's a lot of quackery in health. And if you go down the health food aisles or the medicine aisles at Whole Foods, there's a lot of dubious stuff out there. And we just didn't want to be that. We didn't want to be something we thought was important that we made up for marketing purposes. We wanted to get to the genuine building science. And so most of the work that's gone behind the standards at EPA Indoor Air Plus has come from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And so I like to think of them as these are the guys in the white lab coats that really know what works for our industry. And so it's a very easy lift to move from being a code builder today into the EPA Indoor Air Plus program. I think there've been a number of national builders make a commitment to it over the last year. And I think COVID has just made it a really important thing for our customers in our industry. And it's just a really great way to not just dip your toe in the water, but to go all in on health if that's what you want to do with your business.
Great, thanks. And taking that evolution, kind of the early adopter, let's shift it over to solar. And Dirk, I'd like to ask you about, you've been in the solar industry for quite a long time, and I'm sure you've seen a great evolution too, as you know, early adopter, people who started on their homes, now are doing it on homes. I wonder if you've got any insights to give builders who are thinking about, maybe they want to tap into starting to look at either making their homes solar ready or putting solar on them.
Absolutely, Michelle, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, it's, you know, solar, obviously still a fairly new amenity for homes in most states. But we've really developed some programs, and really the financing has made it very easy and very affordable for buyers to select solar for their homes. And we have a program here at Sunnova that's very tailored to new home construction. We work with home builders all over the United States, and we make it easy. We adopt or adapt very well to their construction cycle and the processes that are already taking place on the construction sites. We get it. We work with builders. We know how they think and what their expectations are, and have really worked hard to make it simple for them to incorporate solar on the homes.
All right, great. And I'll take that and I will spin it as a question for both of you. One of the hot topics with our builders and our builder members has definitely been the supply chain and the issues that have been going on with the supply chain since COVID. So does anybody have anything to share with that, particularly about solar? Anything else if you'd like to add? Any hacks that maybe you've come up with, unless you don't want to share them because you don't want somebody else to get your hack
Like
and your
giving
material.
away your favorite fishing hole here.
Yeah,
That's
Bill,
right.
You're asking us to do a lot.
hey, Michelle, I'll
Maybe
kick
not
that
your
off.
favorite fishing hole, maybe your second favorite fishing hole.
I'll kick that off and then kick it to Gene. But you know, from a supply chain perspective, we've been very fortunate at Sunnova that we have really had no disruptions. You know, we've had to pivot on a few things, but we've been able to meet the demands of our builder partners out there and not slow the construction cycle. I had the great fortune of meeting with builders all over the United States on a daily basis, and I hear nothing but supply chain challenges. It sounds like it's more on the, you know, the appliances, and I've heard HVAC coils is the new hot topic, and certainly a multitude of other things. But yeah, it's a real world problem, and I know the builders are working hard. They're coming down to the end of the year. A lot of them are closing out their fiscal years, and they have obviously homes that they need to close. So we wish them well with getting those supply chain challenges put to bed and moving forward. Gene, kick it over to you. I'm sure you're dealing with that on a daily basis as well.
Well, you know, there was an article, I think, in at least a recent Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it was today's, but billions of dollars of deliveries of cars won't happen because they're short of chips. And I think that's happening in our industry. We're going to have to push 22 homes from this year to next year because we're just not going to be able to get them across the finish line due to supply chain issues. We have two townhome buildings that are sitting complete waiting for garage doors of all things. And what's so odd about it is it's sort of a whack-a-mole situation where 1 week it's appliances and then it sinks. And, you know, we had a situation with some sinks where, well, can't get those sinks. Well, our purchasing department went online on Amazon, put some on their credit cards to get sinks. And I've just never seen anything like it in my career. So we're working through it. I heard Jerome Powell yesterday, or maybe a few days ago, say, we don't think these supply chain issues are going to go away until next year. And that's actually affecting their monetary policy, where, you know, they're not wanting to tighten up rates and in their accommodative monetary policy until we can get through this, because it's tough. And I think it's very frustrating to build a home right now. And we've tried to give support to our people on the front lines to make sure that we've got their backs when we're trying to deal with a missing part or not high performing subcontractor. And I think it's a real key for all builders to keep their morale up out there on the front lines right now, because it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think patience is one of the top things everybody needs a giant cup of every morning these days. So, but there are still people, supply chain issues or not, challenges with building homes. There's a lot of people out there who want a house. They want a home, they're looking to build a home. And our customers requesting all electric homes. You did some talking about that in the video, talking about that Vitality Collection is all electric. Are you getting customers asking for that? How do they feel about it? Are you like swaying people over towards it? What's going on right now on the selling side?
Well, the truth is, we just wanted to check out with our consumers what their acceptance of this would be. And it's so funny, when I was a kid in Texas, the local utility had a thing called the Gold Medallion Home, and their little cartoon character, Reddy Kilowatt, was there to tell you all about the advantages of a gold medallion
about that.
home. We're back to the 50s or 60s with all electric homes. And so we put it out there as an option. And then short of somebody taking the whole option, we have sort of mini options to sort of test what a consumer response would be, such as an electric fireplace. I personally think they look pretty fake, but we're finding little to no customer pushback on that. Induction cooking is something that we pushed, and even had a couple of chefs out to do demonstrations on them to try to dispel the notion that you're going backwards from gas in terms of cooking performance. And the truth is, on an optional basis, the response has not been overwhelming. And when we first started doing net zero houses, we did them as options, and the response was not overwhelming until we actually forced the option on about half the lots in one of our filings, and they all sold just fine. And so there's something going on with a buyer psychology about a high performance feature. Will they sit there on the sales floor after making the big decision to go forward and on an optional basis buy these things? We haven't had a very good track record with that, but when we make them standard, we can build a brand around it. And then that attracts the buyers that like what we do. So I think we're far from, Michelle, having figured out what that consumer acceptance is going to be.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be an evolution, like you said, just like net zero was. So
just like everything else, every time we do anything new.
Yes.
I always tell people, if we're the first to do something in our market, we're kind of in the highest dumb tax bracket in town. But the important thing is to just keep pushing and keep trying to refine that competitive edge or that unique value proposition that you have as a builder. And I'll reiterate, I think the worst thing you can do is be just like every other builder. I think it's, from our standpoint, having really crisp product differentiation is a real key to our being able to prosper in a market that's heavily dominated by the big public builders.
Mm-hmm. I think those are good points. And to your point about new things not being accepted as well at the onset, I have read that, indoor plumbing was not widely accepted when it first started. People were like, I don't want that in my house. Why would I do that in my house? So things have changed quite a bit.
So I bought a study many years ago from the old NAHB Research Center. And the title was something like Obstacles to Innovation in the Home Building Industry. And they tagged the average time of introduction of a new technology to wide adoption in the industry of 30 years. And the first one they did was plywood.
Wow.
And just the psychology of moving from those diagonal bracing to plywood took 30 years. And I think we're in a much faster innovation cycle now, but a lot of this isn't that the builders are reluctant to innovate. Our supply chains, our subcontractors, we're factories without walls, and you can't retool that factory overnight. And subcontractor resistance was listed in that study probably 30 years ago as It's what the chief obstacle to innovation in the industry is. And more what we've learned is that if we'll actually partner with our trades and subs, and we have a group of trades now that they'll tell me things like, well, we like working with you because we know at the next code cycle we'll be ready, because we're probably all going to end up having to do it sooner or later. So I think advice to builders on the call is, I think it's almost a cliche about these are your trade partners. But if you really partner with them and really work with them, I think we found to be willing innovators. We don't build any of our own houses, so we better get them on board, right?
That's true. That's a good point. And to that point, if there are builders that are willing to innovate, they're looking at this, they've got trade partners on board, they're working that side of the house. Do you have any tips, both of you? Do you have any tips on starting to market high performance? You know, you talked about rebranding when Thrive rebranded. If a builder is looking to start marketing high performance to consumers, what type of messaging would you recommend? You know, I know we've heard on some of our other webinars on some of the other months of trying to keep it simple to make sure their eyes don't glaze over and you don't take them away. We don't nerd them out, basically. So I don't know if you have found that to be the same case, or because of what you are doing in your niche, Jean, are you finding are you getting a mix of the nerds and the people who eyes glaze over? So what do you guys have to recommend about that on the marketing side for somebody getting started?
Well, I think I've been our own worst enemy on that. I'm an engineer, and so it seemed like the right thing to do is to turn the fire hose of information onto our customers. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't work. And our customers are showing up to buy a home. They're not showing up to get a PhD in building science. And so maybe an example, excuse me, with the evolution of that. We did our first building science center, and it was a 3-car garage, and we retrofitted cutaways from a typical 2x4 home and a 2x6 home and our double 2x4 wall. And we're trying to describe building products like consumer products. Well, we're using Tyvek. Think of Gore-Tex for your house. And then it got really bad when, we have an R40 wall. When it comes to our values, higher is better. But if you're looking at a window and at a U value, lower is better. And if you're looking at the SEER rating for your air conditioner, higher is better. And just, it's so confusing. And I remember taking some marketers through one time, and they patiently had me walk through the whole thing. And I said, did this matter? And they said, yes. And they said, I asked why. And they said, because it shows you care. And that was a really important message for me, that the object of our marketing is to show that we care and to give them enough information to believe what we're saying. And so our approaches on the sales floor have gotten simpler and more elemental as we've gone. We have this great health image that's maybe my favorite all-time Thrive marketing image. And it's a woman feeding a little girl in a high chair. And the caption is that the air she breathes is just as important as the food she eats.
I saw that on Twitter this week again, too. Somebody was tweeting about that. So,
and well, there's where we're getting right to the heart of the matter of what our consumer cares the most about. It's the people she loves. And to the extent that we as builders can come alongside her and say, we're here to help you take the best care you can of the people you love, it kind of stops being about granite or quartz, and it starts being about indoor air quality and the things that could really make a difference, especially with a kid with asthma or allergies. We have some interesting market research coming out of the EVA Builder Benchmark Group.
And Jean, I'm going to have you pause for just a second on that, and we're going to get back to it.
Okay.
Just because we're coming up on 3:45, which was the original time that everybody had scheduled for this, but I just wanted to let you all know that we've got a couple more questions, and Jean and Dirk have offered to stay and answer those questions. So you are all welcome to hang out with us to no later than the top of the hour. But if you need to get going. We totally get that. And I just wanted to let you know with a couple closing notes that the series is going to continue monthly through January. Starting next month, we will be back on our regular schedule of the third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you've missed any of our previous tours or you can't make one of the upcoming ones, please check out the replay library. Just Google NAHB Green Home Tour Library and it will come up. And we hope that you'll join us this fall. We've got a number of exciting tours I'll let everybody know about now before we get back to the couple questions. In October, I'm excited because we'll be in Northern Virginia, which is the only project I've actually been able to see in person since I am here in the DC area. We'll be with Stanley Martin Homes at their Tall Oaks Townhome and Flats site, which is an infill project. And we're going to learn about the NGBS verification inspection process. So we're actually going to see some video of green verifiers taking a look at stuff to see what is going to pass for NGBS points, such as grade 1 insulation. What's it really look like? November, we are going out to Pebble Beach. Bill Hayward of Hayward Healthy Home Score has been gracious enough. He's going to tour his new personal home, which is just about finished. We're going to tour that with him and Jillian Pritchard Cook of Wellness Within Your Walls, learn about all the features that he's been doing, what he's been up to during the pandemic, and how all of this is scalable to no matter what kind of builder you are. Also in November, I want to point out that the Home Performance Counts Tour Series is going to be live for the first time at the Realtors Conference and Expo in San Diego on November 14th. So any of our real estate professionals who are going to be heading out to San Diego, please check out that half-day home tour on Thursday morning. December, we are going on a high performance remodeling journey with Heather Ferrier-Laminack of Ferrier Custom Homes out in Texas Hill Country. She's been filming over the past few months as they take a mid-century modern home and tear it apart and put it back together. And then in January, we're going to go out to the Northeast with Craig Foley, Chief Sustainability Officer for Lair Realty Partners and the co-founder of Rethink 39 Group. And we're going to take a look at some serious deep green up in the Northeast, which we haven't been to yet. So we hope you join us for any or all of those as your schedule allows and hit our replay library. If you need to drop off, remember today's tour is recorded. I will be sending an email out to everybody when the link is up for the replay library and the PDF of the Q&A. And if you've got any questions, please reach out to me in the meantime, and then we are going to get back to Jean was just about to talk about some things with EBA and their library.
Well, we've started a customer satisfaction survey with EBA Builders. So I think it's the first body of knowledge on high performance home buyers, strictly green home buyers. And we're finding that this allergy and asthma driver is much bigger than any of us thought. And something like 60% of the people who buy a high performance home are buying it in hopes that it will help a family member or a buyer that has a respiratory problem. So we're just continuing to laser in on marketing to the things that resonate with our customers. And I agree with whoever it was you were quoting, keep it simple. I think if we can get across one or two things rather than trying to blanket them with 10 or 15, they're going to remember the one or two. They're not going to remember the 10 or 15.
Great, thanks. And Dirk, did you have anything to add as far as trying to talk to people about putting solar panels on their roof and operate, especially as we move into battery storage, as you guys were talking about?
Absolutely, Michelle. Well, first of all, I think everybody should do it. That's kind of a given, but a little humor there. Thank you. Anyway, I totally agree with Jean. Keep it simple on the message, but support it with education also. I think, there's still a lot of questions surrounding solar out there from buyers and, how does it impact them, not from a financial standpoint, but, ongoing and how is that financed and things like that. So we do a lot of hand holding with not just the buyers, but with our builder partners as well. And especially their new home consultants, so that they're very well educated in solar and how does that contract look? How does that work? What does the installation entail? What does the offset entail? So I think that's a big key for that. But it's interesting. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Houston, Texas, Monday of this week, meeting with a builder down there, and the resounding message was, Dirk, we have a lot of buyers coming in asking about solar. And I found that very interesting because, as you know, Houston is certainly an oil and gas mecca down there. So we're starting to see a real infiltration of solar even into some of those markets. So keep it simple, provide education, provide that hand holding, provide that high level of customer service.
All right, great.
Well, and Dirk, it just seems like in this era of power outages and you live in Texas, you know what Texas went through and what happened with their cost of power during that spike. And this is a deregulated market. And I bet it's causing some people to think a little bit more regulation might be helpful, but at the end of the day, energy independence is a move that a home buyer can make and not have to be so dependent upon the rest of the grid operating the way it should. And I think California has a lot of planned outages, and I think it's becoming a real thing on the part of consumers. Think about the people down in Louisiana right now trying to recover from the hurricane. So, regardless of what people think about the cause of climate change is marching on. It's happening. And I think that for some buyers, and we see a lot of them, there's a real desire to take matters into their own hands and take care of their families. And a very energy efficient home backed by solar with a battery is a pretty good resilient strategy.
I agree, Gene, and thanks for the segue. We haven't talked much about battery today, but that's certainly a key component to this, as well as having that stored energy, if you will, to deploy when needed. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that as well. So I'm very thankful that we have a solution. You mentioned taking care of families. That's certainly what it's all about. And we certainly want to support that effort and support our builder partners as much as we can.
And that's a great segue. That is one of the last two items that I've got to pitch to you guys today, unless somebody else has anything else to drop in. But we've got something about, you brought up battery storage during the video. You just talked about it now. It's starting to become something besides just the panels having the storage to get the energy independence. Can you just drop on people just a few maybe quick facts about what's going on in battery storage right now? Like, how big are these things? Where do they wind up in the house? Do you have to maintain them? That kind of thing.
Yeah, just a couple of bullets there, Michelle. Thank you. So battery storage, as I mentioned, is really a hot topic right now. There's a lot of interest. Battery is very simple. It's typically installed in the garage. In most cases, it can be installed in other locations, but that's I think our preference. You don't have to maintain it. It's easily maintained. It's part of our warranty package on most of our programs. So there's no maintenance necessary to the buyer. It's offsetting that it's being charged obviously during the day when the solar is prevalent, when the solar energy is being produced. You're charging your battery. You can deploy it at night. You can save it for storage purposes. If you're seeing inclement weather or you're concerned about an outage, it's easily deployed at that point as well. So it is providing a peace of mind. Typically, we're not offering a whole home backup, but we do back up critical circuits in the home, and that's, I think, what most people are looking for. So you're going to see a lot of battery deployment in the very near future. Cost is coming down, and it's becoming more and more affordable to do it, both on a during construction standpoint, or we also have a post-close program for buyers that are already in their homes.
Okay, great. And Gene, I know you mentioned when you were talking about battery storage, obviously in Denver, the major hazard that you have is blizzards. I'm just curious as if you've had any that you've actually employed this yet.
Well, my house has a battery, and I think Dirk sold it to me.
Have you had any blizzards, I guess is what I was getting at. Have you put it to good
so
use?
I have had blizzards, and I have not had an outage because of that. And I also have the biggest snowblower on the block, so I'm not like the most popular guy in a blizzard in Colorado, I think. But, it's a serious matter as we talk about pulling fossil fuels out of the house, no gas line to the house. What happens in an outage? And particularly if it's super cold weather, we don't want people freezing to death because they bought an all-electric house. So that the battery backup, I think, is so important. And it's a key part of the resiliency story. Several of our utilities have gone to time of day rates. And so even if you're not producing necessarily the actual electron from your PV array, to charge it, you can charge it at off-peak rates and coast through the high peak rates. And so I think it's just it's going to, as Dirk said, it's going to become more and more of a factor as we go forward. And electrification of homes is a major priority of the Biden administration to try to meet our greenhouse gas goals in the Paris Accord. And we got to have that kind of resiliency in these all electric homes if we expect to really do right by our customers.
And I think as far as selling those types of homes and stewarding them forward, if you're a real estate professional, could distill some nuggets from that as far as, you know, without people's eyes glazing over, but there are areas that are going off of peak rates and, you know, distilling down to if their electric bills are based on when they are using electricity, what some of the benefits are of doing some things like that to try to keep their utility bills a little bit more under control besides having to do their laundry at 3 a.m. So I think there's some really good sales nuggets to for our real estate people to take away from that. And on that note, I've got a final minute or so wrap up for you before we wrap. Moving into the future, Jean, if you would touch upon what your next evolution for Thrive is. I know the answer, the basic answer, but I'd like you to share that with everybody. Just some thoughts on where you think we're going.
Well, so I think next year I will have been a home builder for 30 years. And it seems like all that time I've been marching towards net zero energy. And I've about decided that that's really a means to an end. The end game is zero carbon. And so we had a kind of a debut session at the EBA Summit in Denver last week, where we took a shot at calculating the embodied carbon of a house. And we're working in municipalities at Fort Collins, Colorado, has a plan to be carbon neutral by 2030. And how are you going to do that unless we start building carbon neutral homes? And so I think that's going to be a long runway of something for we and for the industry to address. And I think it could be interesting with this increased focus on Wall Street for ESG investment, environmental, social, and governance. This is all about the E in ESG. And if you're a Wall Street Journal reader like I am, you can't get through one of those issues without 4 or 5 articles on ESG. So I hope it starts to become advantageous to small builders like Thrive to be able to get much lower cost financing if we're an ESG eligible project. And that's what we're shifting towards.
Right. Great. Thanks so much. We are coming at the top of the hour. I really want to thank both Dirk and Jean for being with us. Dirk Corte of Sunnova Energy and Jean Myers, the CEO of Thrive Homes. Thanks so much for your time, for the conversation, you guys. I'm glad I could help facilitate y'all having a catch-up session there out in Denver. And for your time today live, we really appreciate it. It's been very illustrative. So Chelsea, can you put that thank you slide up quick? That's got their contact information. And for those of you who are interested, this is eligible for 0.75, actually an hour, because it's an hour of CEUs if you are interested. So there they are, and their contact information. And you can always reach out to me if you've got further questions. And be sure to check out the resources on homeperformancecounts.info. We've got a lot of good stuff on there for builders and realtors and the whole conversation about selling high performance. So thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Michelle.